Yeah, you can't say that.
All right, if I could have everyone's attention for a few minutes so that we can go over some of the things that I noticed where people had questions and so on. The first one is, so everyone did the day thing, and so now you know how many years, how many days you have been on this planet. And so when I calculated that, I was actually kind of stunned how it does kind of add up. But of course, I'm older. So, and so this is the precise number. It really knows about every leap year and everything. And so it's something that would be tedious for you to compute. But with the help of a class like this, you can answer questions like this trivially. So if someone asks you, what is 1,000 days from today? If you had to compute it by hand, you would really not enjoy doing it. But it's you can just use this class that someone else wrote, and you have it at your fingertips. Now, a couple of questions that people had. So, in step 9, what we do? We called day 2 dot add days of 1,000. And then several people said, why am I getting this funny dialogue? And then what do I have to do? And so what you have to then do is, in BlueJ, you get this dialogue, and you click on Get. And then when you do that, you get another block. Right now you have this, a day 3 block. What is that? What is the day 3 block? Yeah?
The new day, that's 1,000.
Right, it's a new day, it's 1,000 days later, and it's the answer to my question, and I get the answer as an object of type day. So we've seen that in a number of other situations that sometimes methods give us back a new object that has the answer. In this case, the day is the answer. Now I said, here, you mutated day 2, how can you get the original day back? And several people said, well, I looked at day 2 before I called add days. I looked at day 2 after I called add days, and it didn't change. So by asking day 2, what's 1,000 days after you, day 2 figures out the answer, but it didn't change. Did day 2 actually get mutated?
No.
No. Why did I write you mutated day 2? I messed up, yeah. I must have done this without thinking. So, no, day 2 was never mutated. So how can you get the original day back? You simply look at day 2 and it's still there in all of its glory. Okay? It was never lost, so you still have it. That is how an immutable method just works. Alright, so that was the first part. The second part in I see. I think I answered your question the entirely wrong way. I answered a different question, which I'll answer in a minute too. So then in part B, the last question. So most people kind of got worked through this here. The last question in part B was, when does it make sense to right-click on red blobs in BlueJ? When does it make sense to write code? Because I've been showing you both ways. I've been showing you how do you manipulate these objects directly. And I've been showing you, mostly through the homeworks, how do you write actual Java programs that have public static void main and a bunch of instructions. And both of those are good things to do. When does it make sense to do the blobby things?
When you don't need code.
Yeah. So really, the blobby things were invented for exploring, for getting a feel for how stuff works, for doing a quick and dirty experiments. And the code is, of course, if you want to run it again or again and again, or also when your experiments get too complicated. Eventually, it gets too tedious to keep repeating those same mouse clicks. So typically what I do is, if I just want to run an experiment or two, then I find it easier. I just fire up BlueJ, I make a couple of objects, I play with them. It's kind of fun, it's risk-free. I don't have that gap between compiling, running, fixing syntax errors, compiling, running, fixing syntax errors, and finally getting the answer. And so I find it an enjoyable way of getting some information about it. But eventually it gets too complicated, and then I say the heck with it, and I start writing code. But at that time, I have known enough about the object that it now becomes feasible to write code. But for quick explorations, BlueJ is a very nice tool. So use it for exploration, and then start transitioning to code once you have something that you can write about. For example, with with the homework assignment with the random numbers, where people kind of got baffled with how does the random number generator work, let's just make one. So use library class, Java util random. Here's my random number generator, and now I can ask it, give me the next int that's less than 10. And it tells me 7. And I can ask it again, and now it says 9. And so this way you kind of get the idea that it gives you different numbers every time that you ask it. I can ask it, give me the next double, and then here I get the next double, and I can ask it one more time. And it gives me a different number, and I can see it seems to be a fraction between 0 and 1. And that way I can kind of see it right away. That's probably all you can really do with BlueJ. Now time has come to actually write some code. And then you have to go through all of this. You have all this crud in here, and you have to clean it out, and life is no fun. Do they even give us a main? They don't even give us a main, so I have to now go and hunt somewhere where I have a main. So it's just more time consuming. But of course, eventually you kind of do want to do that. So the other thing that someone noted that I thought was very clever was with the scale method, said scale the image to half the size. And so originally the image was how big? 512 by 384? So what I did, I said, well, what's 1/2 of 512? That's 256. What's 1/2 of 384? 192. So I made it 256 and 192. And very reasonably, these people back there said, that's a quarter of the size. Yeah, it's a quarter of the size. But you can fit 4 of them in this, right? Yeah. I had not thought of that.
Yes. You have to multiply 0.75.
It doesn't matter for this, but I just wanted to point out that some people really think this through. So how do you make it half the size?
Yeah, you multiply 0.75 to each side.
So then they said, well, what if I multiply with 3/4? Well, that's almost good, except if you change the width and the height by 3/4, then you change the size by 9/16, which is just a little bit more than 8/16. So by what do you actually have to multiply? So if you would really have to multiply by 1/√2, and then that way you cut it exactly in half. And at that point, you're going to have to start writing some code, right? You have to, because at that point to do it with the pointing and clicking, that just gets too much, and then writing code does make a lot. All right, final thing I want to mention on the homework. There's a subtlety on one of the homework assignments that I want to make sure that everyone is aware of. And that's with the random number generator. So it's easy enough to get random numbers, random integers, between 0 and 9. And that's by calling nextInt of 10. The way, if you carefully read at the nextInt method, it says that the number here is the upper bound that is not achieved. You'll never get 10 this way. And you can compute it, just run it 100 times and you'll see. But that's not what I asked you to do. What random numbers did I ask you to produce? I asked you to produce 0 to 10. Did I? No, I didn't. I wouldn't have done that. That would be too easy. What did I ask you to do? I asked 0. No, with the integers. Did I ask you 0 to 10?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. All right. So then that's actually not hard, but you'll have to figure it out. All right. So there's a minor twist here that you want to include the 10. And okay, if I say any more, I'm going to give the answer away. Okay. The other one with the doubles is when you call next double, then it gives you something that is between 0 and 1. And if you want to be very picky, you'll notice that it is possible that you get 0, but it'll never give you 1. What I'm asking you is, I want them between 0 and 10. And I actually want it the same way, that 0 might be possible in a very small chance, but 10 doesn't have to be possible. So you have to find some way of doing that transformation. Now there are, if you read through the desire to learn questions that other people have put up, there are dynamite hints about that in there. So I always want to encourage you to read through what other people ask on desire to learn, because there may be nuggets of information that are well worth harvesting. And so it's a good idea to learn from them. All right, that's all I have. So I'll see you on Tuesday.